Welcome to What Do You Think? We've got our panel of experts here talking about the hot topics in the South Bay. We've got Kevin Cody, publisher and editor of the Easy Reader, Brad Jacobson of Civic Couch Media. We've got Carol Glover, local realtor and attorney, and Michael Keegan, former mayor of Hermosa Beach and local business owner as well, Manhattan Bread and Bagel. Thank you all for being here today. Short-term rentals. What do we think about short-term rentals? That's another thing that's coming to the South Bay. It's already here. Some would say it's been here for years. Short-term rentals, it was kind of through Craigslist or through a friend, a word-of-mouth thing, maybe an advertisement, but it wasn't done en masse like you can now with all these apps, whether it be AirBNB or VRBO, where you can come and maybe you've used them to stay somewhere else, but is it a good thing for people to come here where you live and have an Airbnb next to you? It does mean, on the one hand, it could mean additional revenues to cities through the transient occupancy tax and through business license taxes. Arguably, it's an affordable way for more people to stay in the South Bay, but then if you live next to one, you got to deal with the noise, the trash, the people, the constant in and out, possibly. There are different rules that different cities have put on them. Some limit it to 120 days stay, some require hosted stays where the property owner has to be there while the Airbnb visitor stays there as well. Some is unhosted, where they just get to rent the whole house or the whole apartment and be by themselves and the property owner is elsewhere. But do we like them here in the South Bay? What do we think? Michael, you were, as a former mayor.
I want to have full disclosure, I actually had a short-term rental that I ran while it was legal. And it was really, I think, a benefit to my neighborhood. My neighbors, it was a 4-unit building, and my neighbors all liked all the people I put in, but I was a tough screener and I only allowed week stays. I wasn't allowing people to rent it for the weekend for parties and things like that. So I had all week-long and 2-week-long stays pretty much for the about year and a half that I had it. And I had great success with it, and I had a management company help do the cleaning, and they take a small fees for that. And no, I made about an extra 15 to 20% more than a standard rental, furnished rental, standard furnished rental monthly. So I thought it was good in the sense that I brought all the people that came and stayed at my unit, ate out probably 2 meals a day in the local restaurants, at least one for sure in the city and one out. And they spent a lot of money. A lot of them went to the Comedy Magic Club. A lot of them used the city and really enjoyed it. And my neighbors all met them and thought they were very interesting people and enjoyed it. And so I had a positive.
Did you get any complaints from them?
I got no complaints from my units, but eventually the city changed the law, and so I changed my model and I got out of that business. But I thought it was really good for the local economy. We were collecting the bed tax. My manager was, and sending it into the city.
Oh, so you were sending it?
Yeah.
That's unusual. Carol, what does the real estate side of you say?
Well, I think they're great. I mean, I personally use them when I travel. In that I try to, especially when we're traveling with family, it is so pleasant to actually have an entire house as opposed to separate hotel rooms and then all trying to meet in the lobby. And I think they are a big benefit to commerce locally. It's the same thing. We just had this discussion with the scooters. It's the same thing as appropriateness and how people use them. And I've rented houses where they have told you we have security cameras in the backyard. They're not recording what we were saying, but they definitely wanted to protect their own property and make sure that there weren't wild parties because they wanted to respect their neighbors. And that's exactly what they said. We're filming you, and you had to take the accommodation with that knowledge, and I was fine with it. And then a lot of these sites will have I think a good thing in terms of they rate you not only as a host, but you get rated as a guest. And if you're a poor guest, you get a black mark. So again.
So would you want one next to you?
I wouldn't mind. It depends if it was like how Michael was running his. I don't mind. I met some very interesting people. It's regulation and respect.
I think the weekend rentals is where we ran into problems in the beach cities. I think that if they'd have set it down to weekly rentals and forced it strictly with the money they were collecting, gotten the bed tax, we had a lot less problems.
That's interesting. Weekday.
That's actually a good point, because I was thinking about myself. I have a father-daughter group that we all go out and we use the VRBO to get a house. but that's always short term. That's always like a weekend thing. I wouldn't want my neighbors to bring in 8 dads and 8 daughters that are screaming and yelling. The kids, we try to control them, but they're still 9, 10-year-old girls. So they're loud, they're singing, they're doing this. But when I go long term, it's usually my wife, myself, and my daughter. Very quiet. We're not, we're not loud. So I think that's a good key point. I think on the long term, in our area, you're not going to get people who are coming out to, let's say, Manhattan Beach or Hermosa Beach for a week long to party. They're either going to come for the 6-man, they're there for that weekend, or they're here with family to go to the beach and enjoy everything that the South Bay has to offer.
Kevin?
I have more reservations about it. First, it's a breach of the zoning code that cities have labored over for 100 years.
The idea that these are residential zones.
It's a commercial use in a residential zone.
Yeah.
And then what other commercial uses are going to be allowed in a residential zone? And why, if you can rent out your house, why can't I put a restaurant next door to you?
Rent out birds.
So it's complicated. And the other issue in terms of community is to me, it'd be destabilizing to the community. I mean, you may get these really interesting people that come in, but they're gone in a week. And I would rather have a neighbor whose kids my kids grew up with.
Well, one of the issues, right, that communities face, especially in California, given the housing crisis that we're in, is that the Airbnb has, in some communities, displaced long-term renters for short-term renters because landlords can make more by renting short-term than long-term. They can make sometimes as much in a year in 83 days renting short-term. So that is an issue, and I guess that goes to
especially a place like here where it's desirable to vacation.
Well, I want to address your commercial aspect of zoning. There's people in home businesses every day operating in their business, and that's a commercial enterprise.
there are permits there and things like that, but you can't. Generally, though, you can't have a bunch of employees or anything like that.
No, you're limited to one employee in the food
And
situation.
parking,
But my point was that I'm advocating like a week rental program, so that's a rule too. So it's the same as the rule of having only one employee and having a small business operation in your place.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to counterpoint your thing saying it's a commercial
Yeah, no, I
zone.
agree. The whole concept of zoning is being upended by these
And the work at home. People are working at home.
all those do-it-yourselfer type projects.
Is this, and government is left to react. Same with the bird scooters and others. So
Yeah,
government tends to react to these things.
And they'll have to. I mean, they can't just have it unregulated. And obviously, the revenue to the city is something to think about.
Are they good or bad?
I generally I just don't like it. I like a neighborhood to be a neighborhood and a commercial district with hotels to be a commercial district with hotels. But I can certainly see the attraction, particularly, I know retired people who rent their house out 1 month out of the year and they spend the money traveling to Africa, and it's a great source of new income. So it's probably, because of that, it's probably impossible to fight. I feel the same way about the birds and these little micro mobility devices. They're going to happen. So we might as well
But regulate them.
figure out, how to regulate them so it's not too disruptive. And it's going to be disruptive. I mean, think how disruptive it is to hotels. Think how disruptive.
And hotels always play TOT tax, where these guys.
Well, yeah.
The interesting
Well, I know.
thing I heard from a hotel owner is that they didn't have a problem with it. I'm sure some will, because I think it will have an effect on our local hotels, but the hotel person said, I'm not worried about it because they're in the lodging business. I'm in the hospitality business.
Right.
They're renting, or an experience rather than just a stay.
That sounds good.
It doesn't sound good.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I mean,
But the reality is, I spend $400 a night at the beach house or across the street at Kevin Cody's 4-bedroom house for $200 a night.
Right. What are you choosing?
And my house is more attractive. The
I've seen
$400
both. I've
The
seen
beaches.
both. And It's easy to say.
Go to the same
At the beach house. I've seen both.
This
Can I point
experience.
out that the hotel occupancy in the Manhattan and Hermosa Beach
Unbelievable.
stands between 85 and 90% pretty much year round, and it has for the last 10 to 15 years.
so you're saying they can take the hit?
I'm saying that there's not enough hotel rooms. In other words, right now, if you build a hotel, you're not looking at a ramp up from 50 and 60%. They opened a new hotel in Hawthorne recently, and in the paper I read that it was booked solid the first 2 weeks it was open.
Yeah.
And so obviously there's some demand even in that area. So that's maybe because there's not enough, rooms available.
Some studies would say that the South Bay is under-hoteled.
Yeah. My answer is only if it's a week-long minimum, no less than 7 days stay.
Thoughts?
Well,
Brad?
I'm under the idea that I love using it, but I don't want to be my neighbor. It's great to go out and
Do as I say, not as I do.
Yes.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
think it's unfortunate, but it's unstoppable, so regulate it, tax it.
Yeah, I love them. So it's a matter of, I just think, regulating, and like anything else in life, respect your neighbors. People lose sight of that. So, and the only way to do that is to regulate it.
Yeah. I would say that as long as it's if it's only 7 day stays or more, then it's fine.
I want to thank our panel for being here and giving us your expert insights. We're going to be bringing more people in to talk on what do you think, and we want to know what you think by commenting below and also liking and sharing.